The stories in Pokemon games are always the worst part. So you can imagine my concern when I learned that Scarlet and Violet had not one, but 3 of them. I was like this. What are the 5 stages of grief? Denial. I was like, no, maybe I misread. Anger. No! Bargaining. Sent an email to Mr. Pikachu. You get the gist. Anyway, I am pleased to announce it is actually fine. Actually, no. It's better than fine. It was a masterful decision. Splitting the story into 3 is exactly what these games needed. Pokemon was never going to ditch the story, and to be honest, I'm not sure how that would even work in the first place. The point of these games is to become the very best, right? To do that, you have to beat most of the trainers in the region. Without a narrative thrust pushing you along, it would just be a boss rush. But here's where past games got it wrong. The story sucked. Now, it is okay for your story to suck, but if it's gonna be bad, it has to be unobtrusive. But Pokemon, yeah. Playing through Kanto, you pretty much only have your rival and Team Rocket for any kind of narrative outside of the gym challenge. Johto develops the gym leaders a bit more and also throws in the legendaries. Hoenn does all of this, but doubles down on the rival, evil team, and legendaries. The fate of the world rests in your hands, and it's kind of been that way ever since. Despite being practically the same story retold with different characters, they've somehow gotten more and more convoluted, resulting in walls of text that you have to mash A through for minutes. Sun and Moon were especially guilty of this, where the game was kind of just a glorified cutscene. Scarlet and Violet's approach allows for a mix of free roam exploration like Breath of the Wild, while staying true to that classic Pokemon formula. You just beat the gym challenge, but you don't feel like taking on the evil team? That's fine. Go take on some Titans. Go shiny hunt with your friends. Take down a few Terra Pokemon. In previous generations, you could stop what you were doing to go explore somewhere else, but you were barred from progressing any further than you'd already been. That meant if you wanted to go do your own little side quest, you wouldn't be able to see anything new. Or in a best case scenario, there might be a handful of other areas that you haven't been in. Paldea is wide open from the very beginning. The only real roadblocks come from areas that you don't have the ability to access yet. Gone are the days of Tauros and Snorlax blocking a road and disrupting an entire city's food supply.
Now, at this point in the video, I know what you're thinking. Wow, Wolf, you're so good at Pokemon. Also, your name is so cool. I wish my name were as cool as yours. Well, I have good news for you. Your name can't be as cool as mine, but it can be a bit cooler thanks to the sponsor of today's video, Established Titles. Established Titles plants a tree with every order and works with global charities One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future to support global reforestation efforts. This is a fun novelty, and you can include your title of Lord or Lady on your credit card, plane ticket, or dating profile. Title packs give you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land on a private estate in Eddleston, Scotland, and an official certificate with a crest. The first 200 people purchasing a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot, within a few minutes of walking distance. Depending on how many of you want to become a lord or a lady, we can build our little WolfeyVGC kingdom. I think it's a really funny concept, and I love that it also goes towards a good cause. Plus, it makes an amazing last-minute gift. Established Titles is actually running a massive Black Friday sale right now. Plus, if you use the code Wolfey10, you get an additional 10% off. Go to establishedtitles.com/Wolfey10 to get your gifts now and help support the channel.
One of the other issues that this structure bypasses is the series' infamous overstuffed cutscenes. Some scenes in prior games would take so long because you'd have a full-blown conversation with your rival only for the evil team to then show up and restate their motivations. And then a gym leader or a professor would pop out and talk for another 5 minutes. This isn't possible in Scarlet and Violet because the stories don't intertwine. Okay, wait, before we move on, I saw that face you just made. The stories don't intertwine. This game sucks. It's just gonna be triple the crappy story we normally get. But my good viewer, here's the thing. You're wrong. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. What is the main issue with Pokemon's story? It's formulaic. You do the same things in the same order every single game. But with 3 stories, all of a sudden, things are new. You don't know what to expect next. And most importantly, it prevents the game from getting monotonous. The stories themselves technically don't bleed into each other, but the player is encouraged to experience them simultaneously because of how the levels in the game shake out. And this little change is enough to breathe new life into the franchise's rhythm. The last thing I want to say before we talk about the details of the individual stories is that for once, it feels like Pokemon got the stakes right. In many Pokemon games, at least to me, the whole cliche of the world is ending and you, the chosen one, are the only one who can save it, just ends up feeling meaningless because we've played it out so many times. Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon's evil teams only made this issue worse because they were so goofy, it felt like a real juxtaposition between the stakes and the villains. Scarlet and Violet have characters that are sympathetic with more realistic stakes, and to me personally, that makes them a lot more enjoyable. If you want to find these videos more enjoyable, consider subscribing. Please! A surprisingly high number of my viewers aren't subscribed, and I thought I'd take a second to ask you to double check if you're subscribed because, well, honestly, I want to be the first competitive Pokemon channel to hit 1 million subscribers, and I need your help to do that. Whether you're subscribed or not, I also want to say thank you for watching my videos. I'm very, very lucky to be able to do this for my job, and it wouldn't be possible without people like you watching and supporting. Anyway, let's talk about the stories individually. The one everyone is the most familiar with is the Gym Leader Challenge, in this game titled Victory Road. Is that some kind of reference? Here, you'll take on all 8 gyms in the Elite Four while battling your rival along the way. It's the same old story, but without the evil team nonsense getting in the way. With such a bare-bones plot, what makes this story worth your while? Well, the characters. If you've seen my review, you'll know that I think Pneumonia is the best written character since N. She's fun and charming, but she never feels like your cheerleader in the way both Hop and How felt. She also feels like she's around for an appropriate amount of time. She doesn't overstay her welcome. How's Pneumonia's team? It's not that challenging, but I also have the World Champ difference, so maybe what you find challenging and what I find challenging might be different. They don't know I have the World Champ difference. What really caught me off guard was how difficult I found the gym puzzles. I'm not sure difficult is even the right word. It's kind of hard to explain. It's not like the task was inherently difficult. Children could absolutely do them. And yet, for me, I was struggling. There's one with an olive, and I don't want to spoil it, but it looks really easy. And at no point did I think I was going to fail, but I still had a really hard time. Actually, maybe that's it. There's never really a doubt whether or not you're going to pass, but it's surprisingly difficult to get there. As for the gym leaders themselves, I feel like they have more personality than normal. At first, they're not especially challenging, but as I progressed in the game, some of the later fights were kind of difficult, especially when I didn't have a good Pokemon with a type matchup. I know it's sort of my job here, but I haven't actually reached the Elite Four as of the time that I'm recording this. The game is huge, okay? What I will say is that based on how challenging the game has been thus far, I'm really looking forward to seeing the Elite Four. Other than that, I don't have anything else to say about this story. It's simple and relatively straightforward. The fact that it requires you to actually use your brain to complete it is a big step up from the gyms in the last few games. Now, on to Team Star. Starfall Street is the storyline that involves taking on this game's evil team. Usually, Pokemon games include a gang of people intent on destroying the world. Sun and Moon changed that by making the evil team a complete joke, until it was revealed that the actual evil team was the giant corporation you thought was your friend. Great premise, super bad execution. Sun and Moon go in the F tier. Life tip for you, the corporation is never the good guy. Sword and Shield did the same thing again, as if it had worked well the first time. Scarlet and Violet separates Team Star from the legendary and gym challenge storylines, and I think they managed to blend just the right amount between goofy and serious. At first, they're made out to be similar to Team Yell, but they're given a lot more thematic weight throughout the story. It isn't a masterpiece by any means, but they are my favorite team since Team Plasma. The bosses might not be as developed as they could be, but after defeating them, we do get a flashback sharing a bit of their motivations. Knowing their backstories makes it easier to sympathize with them. As for their personalities as a whole, you'll have to fill in the blanks for yourselves. I'm personally not upset about this though, even though the characters are one-dimensional. I would much rather have this than 5 minutes of exposition dump every time we meet somebody new. I do think the designs of the characters themselves in Team Star are overall pretty good, but I also have no real sense of fashion, so if you disagree with me, you're probably right. What I really care about is how tough these boss battles actually are. Believe me when I say, these fights are some of the most difficult in the entire game. And it's all because of their final Pokemon, which I won't spoil here. Just know that each boss has the same final Pokemon as their ace. It's immune to status conditions and damage over time moves, and I'm pretty sure that you can't lower its stats, but don't quote me on that. This might not seem like that big a deal for you if you just kind of, throw your Pokemon at the boss and eventually it goes down. But for someone like me who is always trying to cheese fights, this made it a lot harder because I had to do it the old-fashioned way. Anyway, I found the story surprisingly fun, especially because the evil team is normally my least favorite parts of each Pokemon game's story. The dungeon crawl grindfest that normally brings a game's pacing to a screeching halt is replaced instead by speedy auto battles. It's a good way to modernize while staying true to Pokemon's roots. To be honest, this auto battle mode is not challenging even a little bit, but the actual boss fight you get after certainly makes up for it. Last but not least is the Path of Legends. This is by far the game's most compelling story, so I don't want to spoil it here. Just know that there are 5 Titan Pokemon you have to fight. The first 2 are pretty easy, the third's a little challenging, the 4th is difficult, and the 5th one is hard. If I hadn't been able to cheese this one, I definitely wouldn't have been able to beat it at the point I was at. But again, that's the World Champ difference, baby. Defeating a Titan awards you a new ability for your ride Pokemon. I prioritized beating these things really early so I could explore as much as I wanted. I will say, I don't know how the developers expected you to beat this story without grinding a ton or beating the other stories first. And I'm even more shocked that Pokemon, the baby game, has a boss this difficult. We've seen it recently with Ultra Necrozma from Ultra Sun and Moon and Volo from Pokemon Legends Arceus, but those battles weren't exactly in the mass-marketed face of the generation games like Scarlet and Violet. If you want to beat the last Titan without cheesing it, good luck. So how would I rank these stories? I'd say Victory Road is 3rd, then Starfall Street, and then the Path of Legends. But they're all good. Don't worry that much about which order to play them in because you'll have fun regardless. Plus, it really makes sense to keep jumping between them, or you can just go off exploring for a bit. There is so much freedom in these games. Not being constrained to one linear story is so refreshing, and honestly, I hope this becomes the norm for Pokemon games going forward. As always, thanks for watching, goodbye.